Hello. Let me first start by saying thank you very much, Animation Express. Prerna, Anil, Neha, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to present some of our work here. I know it's been a mammoth task putting this entire summit together, and I think you guys have done a fabulous job, so congratulations. One part of my introduction, which I forgot to write, so I'm just going to wing it, is to tell you guys who we are. So we are VFX, the VFX arm of Yashraj Studios. We were set up in 2016, primarily to service the VFX of Aditya Chopra and Yashraj Films' huge action blockbusters. So we're 7 years old. We've grown from a team of 50 people to 250 people. We aim to stop there. So in the scheme of things, we're a pretty small studio. The onus is on us to deliver death-defying action, 3,000, 2,500 shots with every film. So we just have to get smarter and more efficient in the way we do this, because release dates, as we know, are pretty much sacrosanct. One of the perks of being at YRF is the ability that we have a seat at the table to engage with some of the most prestigious heads of departments in the industry. The workflow and the pre-production process is so collaborative, and it's fueled by brainstorming and a lot of this interaction, creative visioning that happens there. And VFX is so happy to provide tools to be able to give these filmmakers a chance to explore and, iterate on creative process and vision. I have brought to this panel, and I'm so grateful to them for giving us their time, Anay Goswami, a very noted and talented cinematographer. I'm going to read the rest of this so I don't screw it up. He's established his mark in the film industry with his distinctive style and palette in diverse stories from Kaipoche, Fitur to Tiger 3. Anay's years as a DOP have earned him prestigious awards, but he continues to be the most modest, sincere, and passionate about the craft cinematographer that I have had the good fortune to interact with over the years. Welcome, Anay. Mayur Sharma, an art director who is so progressive in his outlook, probably a legacy from his days at NIFT, ever curious and insightful, keen to adopt and adapt to tools and process that brings an amazing sense of scale and realism to his work. Thank you, Mayur, for giving us some time today to share your valuable insights with the fraternity. I also have on the panel today two of our team from VFX who I've had to bring kicking and screaming to the stage. They do their best work in dark rooms. Lenny is our CG supervisor and general dabbler in new tech and process. Nanda is our VFX supervisor, also our Gyani Babu, who enjoys expounding on all things VFX. We're going to take care to curtail his enthu today to keep him sticking to the time we have. So, before we go any further, why are we doing Tiger 3 and why this previs? We've used visualization techniques in all our films at YRF. Sometimes it is from storyboards to animatics to give the director, the producer a sense of the field, to bring everybody onto the same page and align vision. Does that always translate to the Bible on set? No. A good previs and a tech viz calls for input and collaboration on everybody who's involved, especially the talent heads of department across the table, for it to actually become a success story as a Bible on stage. This particular sequence that we did on Tiger 3 had very limited time, and it was a very complex sequence, and we knew that we had to throw at it every possible challenge for it to meet its requirement as an awesome previs and tech quiz to translate as that Bible on set. So for those of you who haven't seen it, just as a quick recap, here's a small cut of the sequence.
बजाना जरूरी था।
दो चीजें मुझसे बिना प्लेलिस्ट होती नहीं, एक वर्कआउट, दूसरा एक्शन। तेरा टशन है टाइगर वाला, मेरा टशन है तिगड़म वाला। जहां दिमाग से काम चले वहां हाथ पांव चलाने की जरूरत नहीं, सब प्लान्ड है। प्लान।
What now, brother?
भाग टाइगर भाग!
Challenges. We had 3 months to prep a very aggressive outdoor schedule in the blisteringly hot month of May. And we had, I think, over 5,000 shots to deliver, every one of them a VFX shot. We had to create an entire world of this mountain range behind us, and we had very limited time to do this. But that's not the reason why we're here today. We're here today because we're talking about the collaboration that we had between director, production design, cinematography, action, and of course the producer. Everybody was at this table brainstorming, and Lenny and I will take you through the story in a little bit. But because of this collaboration, Manish Sharma, the director, was able to focus on the story he wanted to. You can't hear me? Reverb ho raha hai. Okay. So Manish Sharma wanted to focus on the banter between Tiger and Pathan. So he was focused on that. Also, Mayur at the same time was focusing on the outdoor set. It was a gigantic bridge and a prison, so it had to be built in its modular components. Mayur is going to talk to us a little bit about the challenges of doing that. At the same time, Anay was working out how to fix the sun path from this location in Mud Island to the Dolomites, which was the mountain range that we repurposed here. So an outdoor shoot comes with it the challenges of continuity in lighting. So Anay had to envision this, and I think one of the strongest points of this tech quiz was that he was able to see right there the sun path charted out and the best times he would be able to get to shoot and maximize for that. At the same time, we had Franz, who was our action director, a very complex set, very complex action. So there were rigs, cranes, and harnesses all over the place. Somehow the chroma, the scribs, and the action rigs all had to come together on this set in a manner that would be efficient, and everybody wasn't in anybody else's way. So the tech quiz really provided solutions to all of these challenges. It also brought the actors onto the same page. Everybody knew on set what was a shot from the previs, what was the next shot that we're doing. Visions were aligned, and we got to it. So let's take a look at how this was put together and then ask our panel about their experience working on this. Can't tell anyone about this. Okay. All right. So, Mayur, Anay, any thoughts on this? It's been, what, almost a year since we've done this. It is exactly a year. Any memory, any amusing incident, not very amusing, that we can't talk about? Okay, why don't you all go?
Amusing incident?
Anything that you can, that serves as a memory
I
on
think
this one.
the best part is we are discussing this in a AC room. And the last year was in a like 50-degree temperature. We are outside, it's hot, and we are discussing in a AC. It's better feeling. That's the most assuming thing right now I can thought. And when we started this, what I seen here, I don't think so. I mean, we visualize everything before when we starting this, like when we started thinking about it. So the amusing thing is, okay, how are you going to achieve this? So that's the feeling which I got, okay, finally we did, and everybody can see that what we did. So yeah, that's the best feeling. Yeah, we can show people what we did in 3 months, or yeah, less than 3 months, I think, yeah.
Can you hear me? Anay, you go.
I'm not sure what I was amused by, but there was a lot of amusement all around us, we know that. So I'm not going to talk about the amusement part of it much. But Yeah, I mean, it's great to see this here. And I think we worked really hard. We didn't have so much of prep time. But from tech viz to actually shooting, we had about 3 months, which was pretty tight to get everything together. And for all of us to really align with all our ideas, I think the tech viz became our Bible. I mean, just we all know how much we've put in.
We'll get into that now.
Now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nanda, what do you have to say? I know what you're going to say, but say it
Yeah,
in
look, it's an experience. Not just sequence, but Tiger intro sequence also a big setup. And from the beginning, the Bombay, is hot, and especially Mud Island was very hot. But even that, everyone wasn't kept in spirit just because we had this Bible, the previs and the tech quiz. So Mayur, Anay, another person whom we are missing here is the first AD. That helped him a lot, immense, because he was able to plan his day based on our inputs on the tech quiz. So that's a big blessing.
Yes. My only takeaway is, and we'll go through this in a second, next time we're looking for locations to scan, we shouldn't look 3,000 meters above sea level.
Yeah, I second that.
It's too much stuff. The weather didn't work for us. But we'll go through that presently.
Okay, so Lenny, I'm going to go sit there and you are going to dive into the location details. And I'd really like you to talk about the scene setup. So,
Okay. I'm just going to play some stuff and talk along with it. Can we switch to the screen?
Yeah.
So, this sequence, most of you have seen a bit of it in the reels we've been showing. What we knew is it's a sequence set in this prison in these remote mountains. There's a bridge and there's a rescue, where Pathan rescues Tiger. Beyond this, one of the biggest things was where this location is set. So we had a lot of help from production design to plan out, this is the prison, this is the bridge, this is the length of it, this is the scale of our entire environment. But we did have to look, and we spent a lot of time online trying to figure out where this environment was placed. So I'm just going to take you through some of the scene setup and that we did for the pre-visualization. You can see some of these scenes kind of set up in bullet time. This is a lot of the action beats from, in fact, it's all of the action beats from the ultimate sequence. And most of this was data we got in from satellite data, from production design. We built this up in Unreal. And one of the reasons we had to get into such a detailed previs was, other than the time, as Sherry and Anay have already touched on, we needed to know how and where do we source this environment from. And the previs essentially helped us to lock down a lot of angles to know how much we would be seeing, what extent we would be seeing, and that really turned out to be a lot. So I'm just going to let a few of these beauty shots play out, and I'll take you through some of what we were planning. Right. So now what you're seeing in front of you is essentially us scouring satellite data and trying to determine what's the best place to grab this set, grab this environment, and where could we place this action essentially. So what you're now seeing in front of you is what eventually made it to the film. This here was one of the main cliff on which the prison was sitting, on which most of the action started. That then led across this gorge into this bridge. And that's really where most of the action you've seen in the climax eventually landed up.
It's a very small red line, but it's a big, big bridge.
So right away we decided that to get into a CG build of this from scratch was not going to work out. Again, time was working against us. So we did decide to get this done as a photogrammetry scan. But like I touched on earlier, this being 3,000 meters above sea level, essentially in the Dolomites in Italy, we were literally sitting and waiting first for the snow to clear, because this location is actually a ski resort. Then we were waiting because we had unseasonal rains and there was too much cloud cover. So finally we got a window of maybe 2 days and we had to just go. But while we were doing this, sitting around and waiting, based on the previs, based on the scene setup, we were doing some planning on essentially how much do we need to scan. Because initially the coverage was, I would say, half of Italy. Then we brought this down to this red showing us this is the primary area, this is the most amount of data that would be visible and would be needed at the highest res. The yellow was more forgiving, we could fall off in detail, and finally this blue area and beyond was stuff we could get into basically a manual build on and get away with it. And this is the flight path planned, where we eventually had a chopper fly over and get a complete scan of this area. This was then taken into a photogrammetry software to give us a resultant mesh. Now, one of the things, again, since we had a limited time window, since we couldn't go, we didn't have the luxury of waiting for an overcast day. We were presented with baked-in lighting on the set, which is not ideal, but thanks to the set planning we had done with Anay and Nandu, we knew that we had a certain time of day and that lighting was working for us. So we were able to grab the set with baked-in lighting. So some of our lighters out here will disagree with me. It caused a lot of complications. Ultimately, we were able to pull it off.
So there were no days where it is overcast, so we couldn't do without shadows. So we embraced it. We timed our capture to the script timing, and we managed the same shadows on the mountains.
Yep. And
Okay.
now, Sherry,
You're done?
we are done.
Okay. Mayur, over to you. Will you tell us how this previs helped your plan, visualizing the set that you designed?
Yeah, I'll tell you how it helped me. It's not even me, it's actually how it helped the film, this whole previsualization, what we did in 3 months. When I read the script, I thought, okay, this prison is supposed to be somewhere in the mountain. Which mountain? Nubra Valley. We thought, what kind of tree, what kind of weather is all in my head. And we discussed with Manish and Anay sir. We discussed a lot about it on paper. And we thought, okay, now we have our prison. Okay, where the prison is? Where is it existing? How it's going to look like? I have few photos. I do some sketching. I did some 3D design. And finally, we come to it, okay, where this is going to be existing, like where it is, like, you know, your prison is where it is. Now we come to the bridge, where the bridge is existing, nowhere. You have to build. We can't build like a 1,000-meter bridge. So this pre-visualization is help me to what I am thinking to give it to the film, and how much is going to help to the film, how much is going to help to the story. And if I go into the detailing means, because we already said few times, we are running out of time. We are, of course, the limited budget. Every film has a budget, has a limitation of budget and time. So we also struggling with that. So this pre-visualization is helped me how much I have to build in real time, and rest these fantastic people can handle that and deliver this what we are just watched it. So it is very important to know what we are visualizing for the film, eventually how it's going to look like. We should know before that. And this pre-visualization is let us know how eventually is going to look like, how big is going to look like, what are the falls we're going to be in, and what are the deep holes we are going to be in actually. So it's better to us before to commit anything, we should know what we are committing. So yes, Sherry is actually help us to get my visualization into the visualization, you know, like it's what I am thinking and I can see in computer. It's helped me a lot.
Mayur, we were talking the other day and you said something which really struck a chord, which was when we have limited time and budget, sometimes the amount that you need to build may not be possible, either from a budgetary aspect or just from sheer time. Also, a location, you may not get that space as much. So you were talking about how this previs or the early blocking helped you resolve those decisions that you had to take.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, this whole portion is we shot in 6 or 7 small set pieces. Not small, one big, one small, one medium size, one very small. It's 6, 7 parts we shot this. So I remember like there's a one trolley shot where these two actors are coming on the trolley and we have only 150 feet floor available to us, which is Reliance and the biggest floor right now is available. And for me, it's like still small. Hey, how are we going to do that? Then that's why you guys play into that, okay, how we can use this small space and show this what kind of scale we seen on the screen. So this small build is give me that confidence, okay, it's not necessary to build everything. I need to build what is interacting portion is, which is new for me. How I'm going to the right texture, it is a learning for me. If I can give a small texture to VFX company, they can convert whatever I want it to and what eventually is going to be. So yes, this part build is a time savior, money savior, and it's the thing which is really required that much you can build, and rest VFX can do that. And you have to be little patience on it. Like you have to believe on it. Of course, your aesthetics, your imagination has to be matched. You have to talk about it. You have to discuss about a lot about this. Okay, what kind of eventually you want to achieve? You know what is your final input is going to become up, or what your visualization is. Once you decide all this on paper, this small build, small part is save a lot of money, save a lot of time, save a lot of energy. And that's how we achieve this. Otherwise, practically it's impossible to achieve this sequence. In these days, days of kind of money crunch and the time crunch, we are making films. So yeah, Sherry, this is like a savior.
Thank you. Okay, so now this is the big one. An outdoor set poses its challenges of lighting. We have with us today Anay. Nanda is also going to help us on this. If you could put up some of the images that you are going to talk about, and then Anay can join you.
Yes, Sherry, thank you. So the whole scene, the action was set up on this bridge, imaginary bridge on Italian Dolomites. This place, sun path, Anay and me studied. We mapped this sun path inside Unreal of the same place, and then we had a scan of the mud island and we mapped it onto that. There, we built like 1/8 of the bridge, which is still a big, around 400, probably 400 feet
400 feet,
set, including the lower deck. We posed a lot of camera angles and tried to see how the sun path works out. So this is a total 12-hour duration of sun path travel with the characters and the elements supposed to be. We ran with this through Anay, and we figured out that this underbridge is a bottleneck. So what happened is, this underbridge is a critical part of a big sequence, and we're just getting 2.5 hours of a shoot time per day, and we just had 4 days. So it's not going to happen. That's where Anay stepped in. He gave us a brilliant idea of scrimming the whole area. This is a pre-visualization of that inside Unreal. This is a real scale of it. It looks very small in Unreal, but it's a big piece of skimmer. This is how it's in action. If I can go back a few frames. You can just see how bright it is outside. Any person who's been in DOP, into photography will understand that it's very difficult to manage it. With the skimmers, Anay was able to manage it. Anay, would you care to put some light, or rather tell us how you manage the big shadow on that big set?
I don't know where to begin, but the first thing I'd say is, for any cinematographer dealing with an outdoor set and, an outdoor shoot of this scale is nothing short of a live event. And usually live events are in controlled lighting. But this was a live event, of course, in very uncontrolled situation. So, like Nanda said, we had studied the light travel in the perspective month where we would go and shoot that location, the photogrammetry. And then, of course, we compared that to the location that we had at hand, which was in Mud Island, knowing which month we would be shooting, of course. We studied that. We studied that at literally comparing it at 15-minute intervals through the most critical hours. We started to study it, compare it, length of shadows, etc. And of course, the big question for me was ultimately, what do we want the elevation of the sun to be through the sequence? Knowing that we were going to shoot in May, and you know, as a DP, the first thing you look at when you get on outdoor location is the coordinates, the month, the lateral travel of the sun, and the elevation and how quickly the elevation is changing. Very unfortunately for us at that time, we were shooting in May, so the challenge was huge because the elevation changes really quickly in summer, as we know. And for nearly 3.5 hours of the day, the sun was going to be above 75 degrees. So that obviously posed a very big challenge. The underbridge section was probably the biggest challenge, what we just looked at, because you know, the alignment of the set, how we're going to align a 400-foot road or a bridge, and the impact of aligning that and the light's impact on it was very, very drastic. So there was no way in the world that we could probably keep some continuity or any kind of semblance of continuity. So the only thing that I thought of was to, you know, firstly introduce a shadowy section in daylight. Normally, you know, because the top part of the bridge is lit in broad daylight, whereas the underbridge, we conceived together that we should probably keep it in shade. And then the main question there would be, if you want to keep the underbridge entirely in shade, what's
2.5 hours. Maximum we got was 2.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean about 2.5 hours realistically if you had to keep it in shade. So we had to obviously continue through the whole day, and that was a 12-hour shoot. So keeping it in shade was possible only if we, you know, put the elevation of the sun in our heads at about 50 degrees to 60 degrees. And I think our conversation was that let's assume that the sun is between 45 degrees and 60 degrees. And there was only one placement of the sun in that could probably, or that could actually render shade. Then that was if the sun was at about 55 degrees and in line with the length of the bridge.
Length of the bridge, yes.
So now to execute that, the placement of the bridge, we were getting early morning sun and late evening sun pouring in, and for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, the shadows would have moved drastically, even if we did switch axis and cheat around. But there was not going to be any semblance of continuity at all. So we then started to, I said, let's try and see what do we need to really build over here to be able to scrim off such a large area. The underbridge section, ultimately we had to
The size of the skimmers, what you said? It's around.
Yeah, I'm just coming to that. So the underbridge section, ultimately we had to calculate, and we did that calculation, and we realized that we needed a scrim which was 40 feet by 300 feet on both flanks. 300 feet is bigger than this hall. So that is a massive exercise actually when it comes to logistics and production, for production to take care of such a big logistical thing. But then it was easy to show our producer that if we didn't do it, because we'd done per half an hour sort of stills on from the east flank and the west flank and morning, evening, to show that if we didn't do it, we would run into some serious trouble and no semblance of continuity. So we came up with a 40 feet by 300 feet on both flanks with the industrial cranes to employed and some pretty heavy rigging. And that way we were able to execute, of course, but more than that, through Unreal, we were able to all align. I think that the process of aligning everybody from the director to the action director to us all and understanding each other's requirements, limitations, and work in tandem to be able to achieve that one vision. I think that's where the TechViz helped enormously, and all the possibilities that came along with it, along with the challenges. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Anay and Nanda, we had to suddenly pivot and move the shoot indoor because of the extreme heat. Do you want to quickly talk about that for a minute? Nanda, Anay, who wants to go first? Nanda?
Yes. So, as I was gripping that it was a hot summer month to shoot for us, and we had a lot of shots to be done, but we got actors' time which is very less, and mostly it was on the second half of the day. The actions were very extensively rigging heavy, so we did manage to shoot a lot of things outside, but the heat was getting. Can you just go to the next one? The next one. So the heat was getting to everyone. Even the actors found it very difficult to perform under the sun. It was very hot. So a lot of the sequences, we moved it indoor. Luckily for us, we had all that light information and time travel of the sun and how it's going to affect our shots. And with Anay, we managed all these outdoor shots indoor. These are indoor shots. So that's how we manage.
Anay, any thoughts on that? Moving from outdoor to indoor. Yeah, terrace section, underbridge section, whichever one.
Yeah. So we shot some of the underbridge section, and the terrace section is entirely shot indoors on a stage which had a height of
45.
Height of about 45, 50 feet. So that's a very static sort of a portion. So obviously, to do that in the second half of the day, when we'd have the actors, that was very limited time, and we'd be dealing with, again, scampering for light. So we wanted to do that in control, and I decided that fairly quickly that, this needs to go indoors, and that section was just, that was the choice we made.
I think it was the planning that we did initially where you designed this sequence and put in that elevation of the sun, made sure that there was a sun path that we would follow, whether we were on top of the bridge, below, or on an indoor set, and the prison, let's not forget that, the terrace section. So I think we did the best we could because of this planning for maintaining continuity of light, which would otherwise have put us in a bit of a fix. And I wouldn't have bought any of the shots. You wouldn't have bought any of the shots.
No, actually, I add into that the kind of detail, Anay sir, and because of the lighting we had. This is the first time I had experienced I have to build a site on a particular degrees. So we discussed a lot on paper on what degree exactly the set is going to be. Nanda, you remember that. So we make the layouts to set on what degree the set is going to be, and it's changed because the sunlight is changing.
Really, it was led by the light. Yeah,
like by the light. So we have to focus on the lighting. Of course, it's not the production design thing, but it's the key thing. We have to follow the light pattern, which has to be interior, outdoor matched. So whatever we are building outside interior has to be degree-wise matched. So we pretty much got into that, and we did a good exercise.
Unfortunately, our action director, Franz, is currently shooting. He wanted very much to be part of this discussion. We have a small video that he's recorded with us, and let's just play that.
I mean, hugely beneficial to have that tech viz. A, from a lighting and set perspective, how much blue screen do we need? Where do we need the blue screen? Where don't we need the blue screen? Sun pass, huge example of a good tech viz. We knew exactly where the camera needed to be at what time of day, when we needed to flop a set to shoot the other way for a camera angle. Very useful, and I really found it a tool that was unbelievably useful to us. I mean, the big thing for us was also, you know, sun pass catches you out very quickly, and later on, you're sitting later in post-viz or post-production, and you're like, the sun is totally different to where we needed to be. Now we could plan our shots. It basically planned our schedule of shooting, to be honest with you. It's a no-brainer. You know, without this, we don't shoot efficiently. And I think that's the key for any production, is to be able to shoot efficiently, to be able to know exactly what the shots are. So when you move to set, you're maximizing your shoot period. And I think from an action director perspective and from a producer perspective, that's key for us. We don't want to be doing things that aren't planned out correctly. So tech viz, absolutely invaluable. I think moving forward, more of the same and more.
Basically, the kind of cranes and the resources we use, we can easily make a east-west bridge quickly. So, yeah.
Okay, last question, because I think it's time. So going forward, previs as a tool to help you plan, and I know the films that you all will be working on are only going to be bigger than this in the future. I know this one we worked on together, and because of the collaboration, it was really successful. What more would you like as tools, previs, more of it? What do you think was the key factor that made this a success? Mayur Anay.
For me, I think to spend a time so much on prep, if we are very focused, every department is focused on a prep, if we know what we need to achieve, and we all are on the same page, and we respect the time what VFX required, and the technique, if we respect that, especially on the shoot day, so I think we are good. That's how we achieve. And it's not only this sequence. If you see this, the film, all the sequences, even like how Nanda is mentioned in the beginning, the first sequence, the opening sequence, is a huge VFX thing. Like we are again in the outdoors, hot season, heavy, big set, but still we manage with a good kind of, you know, with the good VFX. Just because we had a great prep together, and we respect what VFX is asking us to do in a certain way, and we follow the pattern. And that's how you achieve this. So I think it's just a tool which you have to respect. It's going to help you. It's not going to bother you, or is not going to take your creatives out. It's actually helping you in every manner.
Anay, your thoughts?
After doing this, I think it'd be rather hard to go backwards and go back in time. So, I mean, the precision with which we could work, the precision of whether it was choosing our angles and movement of camera, or backgrounds, or just the proportion of backgrounds, and setting our Z depth for the background, etc. I think all of these things were so integral to finally all of us being able to get together and, you know, put our heads and be on the same page. I think it's all about being on the same page, and when you're able to see things similarly, obviously you move forward in the same direction, and you know, there's the room for doubt is little, and so yeah, I mean, it's everything is that much more vivid, that much more clear, and we can concentrate really, all of us individually, on our own departments, knowing that we're looking out for each other's back, you know, and that can only happen when we align together and understand our strengths and limitations.
Thank you for that. We spoke a lot about HODs, heads of department, using this tool. What I didn't focus on is the fact that previs is also a great production tool. At YRF, there is always a sequence that is budgeted for, both in terms of cost and in terms of time. When we're blocking and we're planning a sequence, especially these complex sequences which need so much world building, the producer would like to know how much of the set he is going to build, what is going to be the chroma component, and what's going to be handed off to VFX. And we come to the table first with that perspective. Is this going to be a viable sequence to do at all? So that's one more of the boxes it's ticked off. It's bringing everyone on the same page. There's a small shift in the way we plan production at YRF now, where the time we invest in pre-production is, I would say, deliberately increased, with the view that finally in post-production we will be saving time because all those fix it and post things are now eliminated. Lenny, last question for you going forward as VFX and in helping filmmakers with a pre-visualization tool and process, what's next?
So, as you've touched on, and VFX is, and not VFX, Yashraj Films is quite determined to make, I think, bigger and more complex action movies going ahead. And I think Adi Chopra is also quite clear that he really wants everything previs down. So we've come here today and we've talked a lot about previs, pre-production, because really that's what we want to show, that you're not going to get that final result out without all of the planning that you've been seeing here, which is why we've touched on so much, as Sherry said, pre-production work, pre-production, planning work. This is all we've been talking about today. So in the future, yes, we've set up a small lab. We're trying to give more tools to filmmakers, more tools to HODs. We want to give them virtual scouting so we can put them into their sets before they're built using VR technology. We are using stuff like, virtual cameras. So you can interact with your set using an iPad and essentially give filmmakers tools that they are more comfortable using directly. So you don't necessarily have the reliance on sitting with an artist and trying to eliminate the machine and the tech from being a bottleneck. We're also using tools like Simulcam to give you previews instead of chroma, and eventually LED work as well. So all of this is coming together in VFX, and you can use some of these tools, you can use all of these tools, and it's just the way forward. And also motion capture for complex action choreography, because we don't want to be sitting and manually animating that.
Absolutely.
So since we are visual effects guys, we put a small video together of that as well.
Thank you very much, guys. I think we're done. Were we very much over time?